Hey, hey, hey. I always interrupt the song early these days because we got cited for a copyright violation.
We did?
Yeah. Mrs. Smith, I guess, Jimmy's widow,
Yeah.
or their progeny, has got something to say about us using. They don't mind us using it, but they're gonna stick an ad up there if they catch us using it. So
Okay, well, this is... okay.
so I interrupt it with a little discussion, and then the sound bot doesn't recognize it. So
Okay, good. Well, that's good. Okay, good.
anyway, this is Counselor Curtis. This is the Jimmy Doan Show. We are here live in studio. We are here. We have more computing power than all of NASA circa 1975. And we are broadcasting with Jimmy Doan.
And hey there, good to see you again.
Yeah, and so today is the 25th of July.
Yep.
What's happening?
Well, here's what's happening. For those of you, and I meant to mention this last time, who failed to buy your Mega Million jackpot
Failed.
yesterday, one person
The computer has indicated you have failed to purchase your ticket.
won almost a little over $500 million.
Wow, that's pretty dang
That's
good.
in California. Apparently, the ticket was bought in California.
One unlucky person.
Yeah, right. Well, of course, they're only going to get about half of that to start.
How? But Jesus, what kind of incredible! I mean, you transfer that kind of wealth to one person, and you just wait for the kaboom.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I
No.
mean,
The
It's unnatural for that type of wealth to be transferred into society to one person like that.
Well, not so much. It's just here's a person who was stupid enough to buy a lotto ticket or whatever. What do they call it? Mega Millions.
Stupid enough.
So here's
You're
the
right
first-
away.
Right away, you know that this is not. This is. Let me put it this way. It was Southern Cal. It was if it was Seattle that the ticket had been sold. It wasn't going to be Bill Gates who bought the ticket.
Right.
See, it's going to be somebody. It's going to be some janitor or some. It was one person supposedly, and as I say, after the taxes, there's going to be 40% taxes roughly, right off the top.
I'll take the lump
And then-
sum.
Right, I'll take the lump sum. And I can tell you now, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I remember back in '88 huge. Back in '88 when they started our lotto here, of course, which is for suckers. It's it's for the kids, for the children, it's for education. Well, it's a suckers game. It's
Right,
totally
because of the payout ratio.
the payout ratio, as I say, would make a numbers runner weep with envy, because even the
Enough to make a mafia don blush.
exactly. I mean, they would love to be able to have a 33%.
Yeah, it's 1/5, or excuse me, it's 5. It's 1/5 the payout of Vegas, or 1/10 the payout of Vegas.
No, well, the payout.
The other way around.
The expected value, what they call the expected value, is around a third. That is to say, for every dollar. Now, again, you'd have to buy gajillion tickets to make this, but what they call the expected value.
You get 30 cents back.
Right.
And when you're in Vegas,
even let me put it this way. Blackjack, if you just play a real basic system, always hit 16, don't hit 17, whatever it is, that's like about a 90% payout. Keno is 80%, for God's sakes.
so and that's the worst one.
That's the worst.
Notoriously.
The wheel, the roulette wheel,
Right.
is like 90%. The slots are 90%.
Wow. So you make back more than twice as much your money if you were to just go blow it in Vegas.
More than twice, exactly right.
Right.
And of course, that's what keeps you coming back. As you know, the way a slot machine works is it pays off every once in a while, and it keeps you coming and keeps you going. And,
I won this time.
yeah, I won this time. I wonder what I'll do next time. I suppose if you were in that Nicolas Cage movie called Next, where he could see 2 minutes into the future, and he would always play this. He would always say, "Well, I always play just against the house. I never cheat anybody, and I just play enough so that nobody is alerted." Well, of course they are, and everything. So anyway, they did get alerted. It's actually a very good movie if you get a chance. I think it's really cute. So the next thing is I might as well talk about Trump a little bit.
Okay.
What I thought was interesting, this is really fascinating, and Trump got called out on this. He has announced a $12 billion bailout loan to the farmers of America,
Right.
who might be harmed by tariffs from other countries. And I'm thinking to myself, this, what are you? Isn't this exactly the same thing on a smaller scale as the bailout was in 2008 or whatever, when they had?
But this goes perfectly along with his conception of how the government interacts with the economy. He is going to play tariff wars because he believes that he can threaten the other countries into, I hope, lower their borders, and so then we would lower ours, our trade barriers. But he knows there's going to be pain on the interior of our country,
Right.
and he's willing to put the Band-Aid on where necessary, to the
Right.
tune of $12 billion for the farmers, or whoever squeaks loud enough for sure is going to get some oil.
Well, what's fascinating is that even the representatives, Republican representatives, in the farm states are saying, "Whoa, wait a minute! This, even to us, this is obvious that this is not right." I mean, if you're gonna take the money here, and of course, what you have to do is you have to borrow the money, increase the deficit in order to come up. Now, $12 billion.
Those are just costs.
Yeah, those are just costs, right? But even the absurdity of it is so obvious, even to our idiots in Congress, that even they are saying, "Whoa, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right." I mean, if you're going to take the money on one hand and pay it back on another, it's kind of a
Perfect, because only half the people are going to demand it back on the other side. It's like coupons. It's like giving out coupon. Don't worry, we'll take care of you. Just exchange this coupon.
Well, that's one
you
thing.
have 90 days and that kind
Right.
of thing.
Well, it's fascinating to see that in other words, you wouldn't want to lower the tariff.
No.
Because what you do is
his
it undermines the policy, right? So what you do is you take the money from over here from the taxpayer and subsidize the 1.5% of the population who are farmers. So that's great.
Yeah, to me, the tariffs constitute the worst act by Trump so far.
Yeah.
Of all the things that he's done, to me, that's the most damaging
Right.
Of anything.
Well, because it's the one thing that happens, as you well know, is the great law of unintended consequences.
It's just a huge tax. It's man, it is potentially going to ignite a firestorm in terms of other countries retaliating. It already has in some places. He's just ramping the thing up. He's already doing harm to our people, and he's putting Band-Aids on it. It's already a train wreck, and he's just throwing fire onto the
gasoline. He's throwing fire onto the gasoline. It's what's fascinating is, to me, is that the question is, who's going to say uncle with the pain
right
that we're going to inflict on? Because obviously, if those people in France and China and so forth can't ship over, they're going to start to go out of business. What do you think? Now, the question is, are those countries going to subsidize their losers, or are they going to raise their tariffs for our stuff?
And I'm sure a combination.
Well, what's interesting apparently is our trade deficit, if you want, our trade the value of the trade from China apparently is $500 billion, roughly $500 billion. Well, right now we're up to 30 or 40 billion in targeted tariffs for China, and he's threatened. He says, "Well, we'll go to 500 billion." And so they're going to put tariffs on everything that China. Well, at some point,
Great.
you got to ask yourself,
cut us out of the benefit of China.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Smooth.
Smooth.
Yeah. No, worst possible course of action I think that he could take at this point. We need to be, if anything, embracing the trade world in the biggest and most painful way possible, as opposed to doing the opposite. Whatever the real value of goods is around the world, that's what we need to be paying, not some strangely inflated cost due to our...
Well, the governments always think that they're geniuses and interfere all the time. And I mean, look, sugar subsidies...
Not this guy.
Yeah,
oh, wait.
Yeah, right. So it's, as you say, the damage is because the problem in a nutshell is that these different barriers that have come in over the years, in order to eliminate them today, for instance, if you were to punish the Fangool brothers or whatever down in South Florida,
Right.
and eliminate sugar subsidies, well, there would be like one or two congressmen here in Florida that might lose their seat. And of course, the Fangool brothers, instead of being billionaires, might be just merely multimillionaires, and and they would stop contributing whatever it is to wherever it is. I mean, it's and of course the 320 million people in the United States would benefit, except for the fact that sugar is bad for you. But other than that,
Well, the tide hasn't quite turned. I really expect the internet to, quote unquote, save us in this regard.
yeah,
Because I think there's a mass proliferation of information, especially about these types of things, special interest groups, who's getting what from who and why. And why I think people are going to recognize that these types of transfers are unjust at their core.
I'll tell you, I don't think the people recognize that, and I could.
They don't yet.
Well, one of the things that's happened is here we live in Gainesville, the university town, and and our city and county commissions, especially the city commission, is made up of professional people, basically. They're
Okay.
to a large extent, but they're idiots. I mean, they are socialists, and they have no problem
All
with
right.
it.
Well, okay. Here's the thing. We live in a fake town. All
Well,
right.
that's true. We
This
live in
town-
what do they call it? What's the one in California? Berkeley. We're Berkeley East.
Right.
The-
It's just Pleasantville, all right? The fact is, this little tiny hog town is what it used to be called, because that's all it was, a train stop between Fernandina Beach and Cedar Key.
Right.
And now it is a $2 billion a year pit of money.
Right.
But the thing is, the money is for such a good cause,
Right.
education, that it is just
Right.
delightful and flowers everywhere, and
Right.
everybody loves it. And so we embrace in this town the
Well-
socialism.
What do you mean, we white men?
What do you mean, we? Who are you talking about?
Who are you talking
I'm
about?
saying the leaders you were just discussing, and we can expect that our town is proliferated with people who benefit
literally
directly.
the city commission here, and to a lesser extent the county commission, is like that Ocasio what's her face up in New York.
Ocasio-Cortez, yeah.
Yeah.
This is it, man. We live in the socialist paradise, but that's because we absorb 100 times the wealth per capita that we export. We are a net importer of wealth in this town because of the huge state and federal subsidies
That's
that go to
true.
the university.
That's true.
So it's just
And they still can't manage it. What's fascinating is that the school system. I was just looking at this the other day. I've always railed against the government-run school system because it's so inefficient, and it is. It's really funny, and you can just drive by, and if you what is it? I forget what it is. It was in the original Superman when Lex Luthor said, some people can read War and Peace and see it as just a simple story, and others can look at the writing on a gum wrapper and divine the secrets of the universe. Well, what you can do is you can ride around this town, and if you're looking, if you're kind of out of the matrix or whatever, and you see, for instance, there's some brand new, up here at one of our schools here, there are some brand new portable buildings going up, which of course are horribly inefficient. They don't hold they're electricity wise and everything, they're a waste. That's instead of, doing things correctly, and the school system is perennially broke. And
you're talking about the local school system.
yeah, the local school system. Well, they are across the country too, but as I've always said, that Mark Twain once said, "For practice, God invented idiots, and then He perfected it with school boards." That's paraphrase Mark Twain, which is like 100 years ago. So anyway, the point being that these people are so clueless that we're going to have another referendum this November on another half a penny or penny or whatever to increase the budget for the school board, and of course it's all for the children and blah blah blah, because they have no idea how to do it. And one of the reasons they're doing it is they said all the buildings are run down and nobody's being paid enough money and blah blah blah.
All right. Well, we should do a specific segment on the schools,
Okay.
probably in Letchworth County. Before we get off of Ocasio-Cortez, have you recognized that the Democratic Socialists have changed their moniker?
No,
They are no more the Democratic Socialists.
no, they're what are the Libertarian Communists?
They, they are Justice Democrats now.
Justice,
Justice
as in social
Democrats.
justice Democrats.
Justice Jay doesn't say that.
That doesn't say that right. I said the Justice Democrats. So
Justice Democrats.
I was not aware of that.
That's it. So it's
I
look
thought maybe
for
they'd been the
coming soon to Oh, and I have a platform in case anybody wants to use it. Okay, this is my Justice Democrat platform. So I think that these guys, Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie, are really aiming too low here. I mean, if you're going whole hog, I mean, go big or go home, right?
Okay.
If you're going socialist,
In for a penny, in for a pound.
that's it. Why not? Okay. So here's the social justice Democrat platform. You ready? Mm-hmm. Free house.
Okay.
Okay. Now think about this, right? 100,000 or 100 million people. Let's say 100 million families in the United States. Let's say.
Okay. Let's say.
You could give them each a house, $100,000 house,
Okay.
on average, for $5,000 down.
Okay.
Basically, you put $5,000 down.
Well, it's like they used to do with the FHA. Was the $5,000.
That's it. That's it. And so all you have to do, and then there you go. So the government throws that in there. One-time charge, $500 billion. Boom, everybody's in a house.
Okay.
Okay. Might as well give everybody a car, right? Okay. That'd be an easy one as well. Similar type of thing. You put down a $5,000 payment. Let's say a couple of 100 million drivers, $1 billion or $1 trillion.
Okay.
One-time charge.
Okay.
Universal basic income.
Okay.
I think certainly little enough to ask. A couple of $1,000 a month. So that's
Right.
25,000 a
Right.
year.
Yeah.
Times, let's say, a couple of 100 million.
Okay.
So we're that's a big hit. That's $5 trillion a year. Okay, let's say.
Okay.
But you can cut out all Social Security at that point.
Okay.
Because everybody's getting universal basic income.
Okay.
So then you can...
No. The problem is, if you cut out Social Security, that means you don't collect the Social Security. No, we're going to cut out the outgoing Social Security.
No. I haven't said anything about taxes yet.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
They could go anywhere. This is just the giveaways here.
Okay.
So free house, free car, free income, and then, for the car thing, you could just do Uber. I was thinking you could just have the government like buy Uber, and just say, oh, if you need a car, just call Uber. It's all free. And you could do the same thing instead of food stamps. You could just have them buy like McDonald's or PepsiCo. Okay. And then they would own Taco Bell, Pizza Hut. You could just walk into one of those places and get some kind of food there.
Okay.
And then for school, forget about free education. We pay you to go to school.
Okay.
Right? So we'll pay you $1,000 a month extra if you're enrolled in school for your expenses and stuff like that.
It's like the VA program.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, that's a pretty good chunk, but there's not so many students right now. And
all right, we'll keep going.
Everybody would be enrolled soon. And then the healthcare thing, same thing. You get injured, not only do we pay your healthcare, but we'll go ahead and give you your salary on top of what you would have made were you not injured, basically.
Okay. I can see a little small problem there, but...
So, and then I'm thinking something like season tickets to one sports team of your choice. Something like that. A little something for the people. And then I think it's not too much to ask for a perfect environment.
Okay.
Corruption-free government.
Okay.
And complete justice reform.
Okay.
So I think that's it. I think that does it. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, that's great. Of course, nobody ever asks about even one free thing. How are you going to pay for it?
Yeah. Well, nobody's going to ask that.
I guess what they do is, in a lot of places, and I'm going to talk about this in just a second, is they just print the money.
Right. You just print it on them.
I saw where the inflation rate in Venezuela has reached 1,000,000% per year.
I have a graph here for our viewers. This shows the inflation rate going back to 2010. And this is a logarithmic scale. So every black line there, every big, thick black line is an increase of tenfold.
Right.
And you can see just over the last year, there has been 2 tenfold increases in the inflation. ridiculous. I mean, it's off the charts at this point.
Right.
It's
Of course, the question I ask is really interesting.
Jeez.
They can't afford toilet paper, but they can afford the paper for the money, which I guess qualifies as toilet paper.
Well, as you recall, the money in Dominican Republic literally smelled like crap.
Oh, really?
And I think the reason is because it had in fact degenerated to the point of where it was just
Well, I remember thinking. I remember years ago when I was in Spain, years and years ago, still under a dictatorship or something. Was the money was so flimsy? It had been used so much they couldn't even afford to replace the money. It was so, it was just. It was paper thin. It had been used so much. They didn't take it out of circulation.
Right.
And of course, in this country, when I was growing up, you could always go into the bank and get all crispy bills if you wanted. Mm-hmm. Not so much, I don't think, anymore.
But no expense.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, right. I think it was P.G. O'Rourke who said it takes a government to take a nice, useful commodity like paper, and then print on both sides of it and make it useless.
Yeah, you'd think at least the other side would be lined with, some
right.
place you could take some notes.
Well, that's
or
what
a
it was.
Ledger or something.
During the Civil War, I used to collect paper money, and during the Civil War, there was a while where the paper was paper thin, quote unquote, but they only printed on one side. That's how bad the inflation got for the South.
Expensive ink there. Huh?
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. You always want to print in one color so you don't have to mess up with, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, we have drifted off subject a little bit.
No.
Okay.
We finished up with social justice Democrats or whatever.
Okay, good. Well, I call them libertarian commies. So I mean, if you're gonna add on something, it's they're democratic communists or something. Or democratic. No, I always like
the point is they dropped socialist obviously because it's
right had bad connotation. So,
but Bernie's not going to drop it,
huh?
Bernie's not going to drop it.
No,
I bet.
No. Well, it's interesting because was it Ocasio or whatever that she dropped it? Did she or something like that?
I think she and her people are now called the social. Justice Democrats.
Democrats.
That's their Twitter account at this point. So.
Okay. Well, great. Well, I'm going to so we can donate to that.
I followed it.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, you follow it.
Sure.
Okay. Let me just go on here to the next thing that I've got on the list about Trump, which I think is fascinating. The White House is facing mounting pressure to disclose details of President Trump's discussions with Russian President Vladimir Putin this week from last week's summit in Helsinki. Now, what's interesting to me is there is now a call from some Republicans, I believe, in Congress that Trump is supposed to detail the one-on-one that he did with Kim Jong-un and with Putin. Mm-hmm. They want that disclosed. What did you talk about? And of course, I'm sitting there, and they've called Pence up because maybe Pence knows something. I think Pence first came along and said, "I didn't tell me anything." Well, the one thing that's getting about this is it was a secret meeting. I mean, the word "secret" is I'm going to meet with this guy, and we're meeting in secret for a reason. Mm-hmm. And
this is all part of the wrangling, though. This is all part of where can they get an inch? They threw him up. They're trying to beat him up from any angle, and if he lets his guard down anywhere, they'll take it right there.
Right.
So,
well, as I say, they've it's just fascinating to me that when these are two major world leaders, and the Congress wants Trump to disclose to the world exactly and precisely what they talked about.
Right. We want you to tell on Mr. Putin, please. Tattle.
Yeah.
We would like an official tattling.
Well, what was it the other day? They had the FISA stuff had come up had been finally released. I might have talked about this on Sunday. Well, it was funny. It was what's called heavily redacted.
Right.
This I don't know what it was, 40 pages or 100 pages or something
like that. Yeah.
And but you can, if you've ever seen redacted pages, it's like they take a black marker and draw, and then there's one word out, the, and, of, those are words that are not redacted. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it didn't tell much. And another thing that didn't tell much this week were the Cohen tapes, allegedly released now in the possession of Justice Department. That being Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer, who apparently taped Mr.
Yes.
Trump, his client, which, although not illegal in New York, because New York is a one-party consent state.
Isn't there attorney-client privilege?
There is, and he may have violated that, except that I think these tapes were seized during the raid of his office.
So what?
Well, so that he didn't voluntarily turn them over to anybody.
Okay.
They were.
Well, I noticed, I was listening to the radio here, and apparently both sides are parsing out what was on there.
There's nothing. I heard a little piece of it on Shapiro, and if there were anything super damaging, it would be all over the news every
Right,
day.
okay.
So there's nothing. The big story here is that this guy thought enough about their interactions to decide to tape them for some reason, which is odd. Like in Florida, it would be a felony for him to tape somebody without their permission in the state. You can't do that, but half of the states differ in that regard. So interesting, but not to be confused with Sacha Baron Cohen. Have you seen any of his latest shenanigans?
Well, I saw one where he got some Georgia congressman or something to bear all or something on his show.
It's so humiliating for the poor guy. I can't imagine that he actually got tricked into that. It seems like he must have gone along with it, except that I also can't imagine that he would actually go along with it like that. He actually got the guy to drop his pants and chase him around backwards, butt first.
Well, and also curse
scream,
with the N word.
Yeah, and it's like so amazing that he was able to get this guy to do this stuff. What a tool this Republican Georgia representative person
I think it
was.
was a state representative.
Yeah, I literally looked him up to make sure he was real.
Okay.
Because I was like,
Thinking it was fake news.
I did. I was like, this is too much. You know, how could this guy possibly have been tricked into this? And, or how could they possibly have agreed to go along with it as some sort of other
Anything.
skit? Anything. Exactly. It
Anything.
doesn't fit anywhere in the universe. It's like, it fits in the... I tried to make a horribly offensive skit for some sort of comedy purposes, and I failed miserably category, and that's about it.
And I guess he's going to probably stay elected.
Well, there's some calls for his resignation, but whatever.
Okay, so the next thing on my list is apparently, and I'm not sure how this is all going to work out, but apparently Julian Assange is being booted out of the
Yeah, I
Ecuador.
saw that.
And they're going to scoop him up. Somebody is apparently. And yeah, well, the tragedy, of course, is that, needless to say, Jeff Sessions, among other people, considers him to be a traitor. And even though he's from another country, they want him extradited. I mean, he's a citizen of Australia or something, and they want him extradited to the United States to send a nice, fair, what do you call it? What do you call it?
Kangaroo trial.
Huh? Kangaroo trial, yeah, whatever it is. The what do they call it? The exposition or what? There's something else. There's
Extradition.
no, it's the Spanish Inquisition.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so it'll certainly be fair.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. With
He will be clearly asked whether he admits or whether he is already guilty.
yeah, right. That's right. So anyway, the Ecuadorian president, and he's been there since 2012, so he's been there, 6 years.
Yeah, man.
Brett finalized an agreement with the UK government to lift
That's some
Assange's-
heavy-duty couch flopping right there, man.
Well, right. Well, the other thing is,
Hey, you guys got a nice spread here. What
Yeah.
do we got for dinner tonight?
if I were him, I'd be a little nervous,
Oh, man.
because he's,
They could easily kill him.
yeah, it's really bad. So anyway, published thousands of.
So much for freedom of the press.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, let me just see here if I've got the rest of things.
Yeah, from my perspective, he's a rogue press agent and should be protected by the First Amendment
Yep.
for practically everything. And I know, there was the whole... I guess he's been over there pursuant to the releases that Bradley Manning originally set
Yeah,
out to?
that was some of the stuff he did.
Right.
I think he'd done some stuff before that.
Yeah,
There was a movie made about him. It was a biofiction thing or something that starred Cumberbatch.
right.
And
didn't
I forget what
see
it
it.
was called. Well, it was kind of cute and showed the battles back and forth between whether they're going to release the stuff or not.
From my perspective, he should have almost complete immunity because of the First Amendment.
Yeah. Well, what's the other one? Snowden is still in Russia, but at least he can work or he can travel around Russia. What's his name? Only gets to travel around the Ecuadorian embassy.
Right.
So-
And Snowden, same thing. I'm just shocked and totally impressed that he survived and made it to anywhere that he could do anything other than rot. And I presume that that's all real, that he really is in Russia because of the interviews that I've seen. My favorite one being the John, who's the guy, not Jon Stewart, but his buddy who now has his own show, Last Week Tonight.
Okay. Yeah.
He went over to Russia and interviewed Snowden.
Yeah.
It was quite funny.
Yeah.
But
Well, at any rate, that's he's a Brit.
so we'll see if they shoot him on sight. And it's like, oh, let him go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Loose the hounds as soon as he gets like 50 yards outside of the embassy.
Okay, so anyway, the next thing, let's see, I talked about Venezuela, 1,000,000%. And of course, Socialist President Nicolas Maduro often blames, this is what I love, he blames the poor economy on an economic war, he says, that is being waged by the United States and Europe.
Sure.
And what's fascinating, he just had an election for another 6-year term and 90% approval. I mean, are you kidding? This is...
I don't know what the status is in terms of the election. I presume it's all rigged.
You think? I mean, it's got either
At 1,000,000%, it's getting to the point of intolerability for the people. I would imagine and expect some sort of
Zimbabwe type stuff. Yeah.
We're at the point. I mean, Chile just passed Venezuela in terms of per capita wealth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's just no reason for this except for poor economic mismanagement.
Yeah.
And
Well, it is
they're gonna
obvious
figure it out real
because when you think about it, as a kind of an aside, the Plains Indians, were the Indians that roamed before Columbus got here over, East and West Texas, were sitting on $1 trillion or more worth of oil, but didn't know how to exploit it. I mean, didn't know. So this is the way it is in Venezuela. They're sitting on the largest oil reserves in the world and no way to get at it. So, is it a rich country? No.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
Oh, nationalized Disney World. That was another one of my platforms.
Oh, I see.
I was thinking that everybody could just go to Disney World. It would be
That's
like,
true.
How bad could the lines get?
Right. Right. Well, you could. Okay. Now the other thing let me just a couple of things here. I got the lotto. If we're going to do that, SpaceX. Okay, I only got a couple of things left here.
Okay.
One is this week is Shark Week,
Okay.
and as a stunt, they took Shaq the shark, whatever it is, and lowered him in a shark cage into the water, and we're filming it. Well, it turns out that a shark got into the cage, and they pulled his butt out in a hurry. But they finally convinced him to go back. The shark
Man, that's one of those trained sharks. They do that trick all the time.
yeah, right. Yeah,
They do. I swear, the shark gets in the cage way too often.
Well, this was the smallest shark. It was
Okay.
smaller than Shaq.
Okay.
So, but still, it's one of those things.
Did he beat it up?
No, they hauled his ass out. He was screaming for, get my butt out of here, I think. But what gets me is, in Florida, we've got some pretty good sized palmetto bugs.
Uh-huh.
I mean, this is a bug that's, like this big, and people mostly will, get it, because they fly, too. So you can imagine if a 6-foot shark comes your way, that's, a lot larger than a 4-inch bug.
Yeah, well, the presumption about the bug is that somehow it has some sort of poisonous sting which is lethal.
Of course, everybody
You
knows that they
attribute-
don't.
Well, no, there's no, and then there's no. I mean, you don't know exactly what kind of bug it is when it's flying at you.
You do here in Florida.
Well, okay. Once you live here for a little while. But I would imagine if you moved here.
Well, Dave Barry used to call them, says, we have bugs down here the size of linebackers.
That's it.
So that was
good.
so anyway, He put his fears behind him and dove into shark-infested waters for the first time on the Discovery Channel documentary Special Shark this week, which aired Sunday. I've already seen it. Well, hopefully you taped it. So anyway, this is clearly he put on scuba gear and waited in there. I think they pulled him out, and then he said, "Okay, I'm going to go back." But maybe he didn't want to be shamed because the shark was actually
bullshit.
right.
I call bullshit.
Okay.
Reality TV.
Now the next thing I've got here is about SpaceX. This is Elon Musk's thing. SpaceX is stated to launch its second Falcon 9 Block 5 rocket, the final and most powerful version of the vehicle, that the company plans to make. This is the one that has the recoverable boosters and everything, and they've successfully done it a lot. And I think they finally put some big in high Earth orbit. They put a weather satellite or a communication satellite successfly.
Okay.
And so they retrieved all the stuff. And what they're saying is that it should become routine, and they figure that the stages will be reusable up to 100 times.
Wow.
And they're hoping to have a turnaround time of like 48 hours.
Wow.
Well, so far the turnaround time has been 2 months.
Right.
So they're going to have to whittle that down a little bit, but still, the
guy's optimistic. I'll give him that.
Yeah, you got to give him that. I mean, it's because once if you can have launches, I won't say it doesn't matter how much they cost, but if you start putting up launches of every 2 or 3 days, you can with this kind of payload.
Right.
We're talking tons.
Yeah.
And that can be, and which they've done in the past. They can do the little CubeSats, which in this day and age. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but you can get your little tiny cell phone these days and communicate. It gets linked, but don't get me wrong, we're talking about a mile or two just for that. Well, you put up a CubeSat in space, in vacuum space, and direct line of sight, it doesn't take many watts, especially if you have a receiving antenna that is not this big, but is this big, then, and with all the amplifiers and everything like that, it doesn't take long before, if you think you got space junk up there now, you wait. Mm-hmm. But the good news is, I guess, is that this thing can go launch things into high Earth orbit. And I'm not sure what the difference is exactly. I don't think that's synchronous, but it might be.
No, geosynchronous doesn't come until you get out to be the
42,000 miles, I think.
Okay, I was gonna say 25,000
miles.
Well, feet. For some reason,
No. You got a regular old airplane goes to 60,000 feet.
Right. No, what am I?
I mean, the SR-71 went to 90,000.
Yeah. No.
No, I think I'm not sure, but I think it's around 42,000 miles is the because let's see, the moon. Well, it might not be that much because the moon is only 280,000 miles.
Yeah.
So it might be. I don't know. I'd have to look it up to find out what it is. Yeah, who cares?
We'll Google it. Yeah.
But at any rate, it's optimized for rapid reusability, according to the company. Another improvements, as you got to figure that every time they go up, they're going to make some improvements. Look at the iPhone. They improve every year.
You obviously saw, I think, the boosters land themselves the last
right
time.
They're autonomous, right?
Man, that was an awesome achievement. But what we're waiting to see from Musk, obviously, is can he turn a profit on these new businesses in a way that isn't sucking a whole bunch of resources out of the economy via his tax cuts and.
Well, of course, that's the problem is always with the Tesla.
Well, right.
Is it still, I think it's $7,100 per.
Did you see the awesome video of the rockets delivering people to anywhere on the Earth in less than an hour?
You mean the what do they call it? This is one of Elon's potential businesses. Oh, right. Well, they're talking about, he's also wants the what they call it, the hyper tunnel too. They've had some experience.
The Hyperloop stuff.
Hyperloop, right.
Well, that one I've heard they are not effectively estimating the costs and the effectiveness of. But I could see the rocket delivery business being effective. You get in a boat, you go out to a little platform, you get in the rocket, you fly to Hong Kong, 30 minutes, then you get out, you get another boat, whole trip less than 2 hours. that's got to be worth something.
Yeah, it would be. I was going to say, because one of the problems we have here in Gainesville is if you want to fly to Atlanta, first of all, you got delays half the time, and we got to worry about the weather and everything like that. And you practically drive up there. By the time you get out to the airport, you check in, you go to that airport, you get your rental car, whatever the hell it is.
It is almost the same.
Almost the same. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, let's see. Now, the next thing that I've seen, this is the last thing that I've got. It's kind of interesting to see. They have a new group. Freedom from Facebook is a coalition of privacy.
Freedom from Facebook.
Yeah, is a coalition of privacy and anti-monopoly advocacy groups, essentially born out of the Open Markets Institute. In May, it counts at least 9 other groups among its coalition, and last week added its most powerful ally yet, the Communications Workers of America Union, which represents 700,000 workers. Now, these people want to break up Facebook. Facebook is also, I don't know what else it has, but it's Instagram or something as part of Facebook. Anyway, they think they're worried that it's become too powerful and it's a monopoly. What's fascinating to me is that people don't realize that it takes a monopoly to break a monopoly, and you have a monopoly with guns, which is the United States government. It's the only way you're going to break it up. I mean, unless the market would find a way to do it as what Facebook did to MySpace, for instance. Which you can go back and see the emails that talk about how living on MySpace was living on Nirvana, and of course it has expired. AOL is now not a lot of people have gotten rid of their AOL addresses and so forth. So the market, of course, will figure this out. But that's not all. There's another group that wants to break up, and they've gone to Congress to break up Google because they're too powerful. And what's interesting is you never know what's going to happen. They want to use the antitrust and stuff like that laws.
Well, and here's the proof that you never know. Every one of those companies that you just mentioned that supposedly has a monopoly that is impenetrable at this point did not exist 25 years ago.
Right.
Did not exist.
Right.
Whatever monopoly they have, it literally was created in since the millennials were born.
Right.
And that shows you how susceptible to the market forces any sort of monopoly is, because whoever had the grip before that, it was AT&T. They had the phone book.
Right.
And of course they broke up AT&T, the bells and all that kind of stuff, because it was too powerful. All I had to do was wait a few more years. You would have had Google and Ask Jeeves and all these things. And that's the same type of thing that goes on now. But they take a too short of snapshot in time.
Right. Well, what's interesting is they get the laws passed just when the market is starting to take over. If you just waited a little bit longer...
Well, that's because it's the same impetus to pass the law as it is for the market to correct.
Yeah.
There's a need... And there are market forces always in play.
Right.
And if somehow a crafty or effective politician jumps out in front of that, well, okay, here come the market forces anyway.
It's all demagoguery, right? It's interesting because we've talked about this before, where the robber barons, I forget what the lady's name was that wrote the book, but they were called muckrakers or something. Anyway, she was talking about the monopolies of the oil industry and the steel and so forth with the robber barons, they called them. Well, if they just waited another week or two, Rockefeller's oil was going down the tubes because there were brand new discoveries of oil in West Texas, and that was coming online in other companies. He couldn't buy them all up, and electricity was coming on board. I mean,
Well, it doesn't always work, because what would replace trains?
Yeah, good question. Anything, just about. Well, the other thing, of course, when you realize that the trains are heavily regulated by
nothing would have ever broken the train monopoly.
No, never would have happened, right? No, but as I say, when you find out when the government steps in and starts to regulate something like this, it's always bad for the consumer in the long run.
Yeah, well, fortunately, they haven't done so much meddling at the federal level until recently. Trump's the kind of guy who I would expect to jump in. We're going to help out. We're going to make things great.
Well, that's what the problem is. We're going to help out these select few farmers.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Well, we'll see how far this goes. Doesn't look good so far, but
So anyway, I'm about done with what I had.
Okay, I got a couple other things.
Good.
Came up this week. Did you see Young versus Hawaii?
No.
Okay, so this is a court case out of your favorite Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Okay.
And they ruled en banc 2-1 that a man in Hawaii had been unconstitutionally denied his right to open carry a firearm in Hawaii.
Okay.
So it turns out Hawaii had an overly restrictive law. Hawaii's open carry law, they had two laws. They had an open carry law and a concealed carry law.
Okay.
The concealed carry law was you had to be an exception. You had to show some kind of exceptional circumstances.
Okay.
The open carry law said you had to be involved in the protection of people or property.
Okay.
So in other words, law enforcement or some type of security or whatever.
Right.
That is an incredibly restrictive standard if you think about it. It limits, that means almost what percentage? 5% of the people can get guns? It's a huge swath that it eliminates from being able to have a firearm out in public. And so the Ninth Circuit ruled that law's unconstitutional and threw it back to the states. Now we'll see how long it lasts.
Yeah.
There are restrictions around the country on open carry. There are restrictions on concealed carry. Restrictions have been found to be constitutional in lots of places, so long as they're narrowly tailored laws that serve a specific and compelling government interest, which they always justify as
Right.
the just
Compelling.
widespread proliferation
Right.
of firearms. But interesting for now. One back the other way, and it was the ninth. I
All
thought
right.
you-
Well, it's interesting because there was an article here locally that apparently the guns, that kind of stuff, the carry business is regulated by our agriculture department,
yeah.
and they want to revisit the licensing for concealed carry. Mm-hmm. Apparently, you can go down and take the course here in 5 minutes and get a
Yeah.
thing. But I think they want to extend the background checks way out and everything like that to make sure that it's going to be a lot harder, as you would expect, to get a concealed carry.
I would bet.
Yeah. And personally, you're going to have to certainly charge extra money for it. Like if you want to own a fully automatic machine gun, it's like a couple $1,000s a year tax or fine or whatever they call it, tax of some kind.
Right. Penalty.
Well, the license
Right.
to own that.
Well, another interesting Florida gun law situation came up this week, which was a stand your ground incident.
Yeah, now I started to read about that, but what was that all about?
All right, so the facts are unusual. What you have is sort of a belligerent guy who hangs out in the area who was armed, and by the area I mean a 7-Eleven, and he likes to sort of frequent this place. He probably sells drugs or something like that, and he's carrying a weapon, and he may have mental problems. I don't know how he got the weapon. I don't know why he was carrying it, and in fact, it was obviously concealed by the way that the incident went down. You can see it all on video.
Okay.
The entire incident. What happens is, a guy drives his car up. He's got his girl and his child in the car. He gets out, goes inside. This guy sort of wanders up close to the driver's side window of the vehicle and obviously starts to engage the woman. The man comes out of the convenience store, walks up to the aggressor, I guess you could say, and pushes him very hard and shoves him to the ground. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now there's the guy on the ground takes out a gun and shoots the man who has the family there with his
Daughter and everything.
yeah, so he goes inside and dies. And the question is this a stand your ground incident? And what came out in the press was apparently the sheriff refused to arrest the guy who was on the ground who shot the man because that guy was reasonably in fear of he would have had to have been reasonably fear of his life, basically. And that is where there's some mistakes going on in the press right now that I have seen. Every time they've reviewed the situation in the press, they have said, well, as long as the guy on the ground had any fear at all, he can stand his ground and he has no duty to retreat. And that's a misquotation of the statute as it's written.
Really?
Yes. And what's happening right now is they're throwing this law up under the bus. And it's too bad because this situation was not what this law was designed for. And I think that this guy who's on the ground should rightly be charged. And a jury should decide whether or not he was guilty, whether or not he could have believed that it was... The standard is, could he retreat safely?
Well, of course, he's laying on the ground.
He is, but... The other guy was walking away from him at that point.
Oh, okay. That's on the video.
Yes.
Okay.
So he could have gotten up and walked away himself.
I see.
And so I think it would be reasonable for a jury to conclude that that guy did not reasonably believe he was in any danger at that point.
Okay.
And especially not in any imminent danger of life-threatening situation, which I think is required for him to use deadly force.
I was in fear for my life.
Exactly.
It's the old cop defense.
Right. Well, you do it at least, but this guy didn't say that. He didn't do that. And so I think he has to show that. I think he has to make that showing. And I think that they're jumping the gun. Now, they did refer it over to the state attorney's office, so we'll see whether or not the state attorney ultimately picks it up and makes a case out of it.
Well, we know for a fact that if he'd shoved a cop, that it would have been totally justified. If the cop had been on the ground, he would have jumped and shot him, and there would have been no doubt about it. No, I mean,
what?
No,
What do you
they
mean?
shoot little waggy dogs that come up to him. I was in fear for my life.
I was in fear. Well, you know what they do? They at least say the words. I was in fear. I thought
Right.
the guy had a shiny thing in his hand. Okay,
Right.
it was a cell phone, but I thought it was a gun. At least something like that. But we'll see what happens. All right. One other thing that I have. Well, two other things really quick. Ryan Lochte. Do you know who he is? Do you remember who he is? Okay, so
The first name sounds familiar.
so he is a University of Florida swimmer that was in the Olympics last time around when it was down in Brazil.
Okay.
And he got into trouble because he stopped at a convenience store and apparently, according to the authorities, destroyed the bathroom or something
Oh,
and
I
tore
remember
out of
reading
there.
about that, yeah.
But what actually happened, what I believe happened, was they extorted these swimmers for some cash.
Okay.
And then the swimmers went back and told that story at the base camp there where all the athletes stay. And when it got out, the Brazilian police were very unhappy about that, and they basically threatened these kids with prosecution in Brazil.
Right.
And it turns out Ryan Lochte is back in trouble now. He's facing some anti-doping suspension because he posted a picture of himself getting a vitamin IV.
Okay.
And apparently you're not allowed to get anything intravenously when you're in competition sports,
I did
as
not
he
know
is.
that.
Right. So even though everybody acknowledges that it was a vitamin thing because he was trying not to get sick, his mom or his wife and his daughter were sick or whatever, and he was whatever. He's in trouble for it again. But I noticed one thing that's interesting is that he is still, the investigation in Brazil, that's why I brought this up, is still open. So they are keeping that sword of Damocles hanging.
Well, one of the things that's kind of interesting about that in a way is isn't Brazil one of those countries that's non-extraditable for I mean, if you're in Brazil and you're fugitive from the United States, they can't send you back?
I don't know. I don't
There's
know.
a couple of them down there, but now he's in the U.S., right?
Right.
Okay, so
We wouldn't, I don't think, send him to Brazil.
no, I was going to say,
But we might, if they were to pass a stringent enough sentence against him, allow them to come pick him up. I know. It's enough for him to, what I'm getting at is that threat is enough for him to never come clean about the situation, whatever happened down there in Brazil.
yeah, I'm going to say, but
So.
when I hear about that, them coming to pick him up, I'm always in my mind's eye. I pick up the Elan, what's his name from Cuba, where the SWAT team was in there.
Elian Gonzalez.
Elian Gonzalez,
Right.
right?
Well, that was our guys.
Right, I know, but still,
Okay, and the last thing is we now have a bona fide reason to go to Mars.
They found water.
That's it.
They found a lake.
Right.
That's,
20-kilometer lake, apparently. Now, I didn't see how deep it was.
I was going to say that.
I looked everywhere, and they said it was underneath the polar ice cap. So,
oh, really?
yeah,
It wasn't out in the open.
no.
Okay.
But still, they said it was
water.
not. Yeah, they said it was not just like a little squeegee runoff from the glacier.
Not
They
the
said-
way the EPA does around here, for instance, where if you have a after a heavy rainstorm, you have a little rivulet.
Oh, that's a
that's wetlands.
It's a stream, right? Wetlands.
Wetlands. So, and it's regulated by the United States government.
You have to get special flood insurance for
That's
that.
right.
But no, this is apparently a real, actual body of water on another planet, and
Well, along that same line, they speculate that at least one or two of the moons of Jupiter under that ice cap has water.
I got you. Speculation.
Oh, right, okay.
And I've been hearing it for a while. Ice is one thing, blah, 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 blah. But water on another planet, that is something we have never actually seen.
Right.
And it is worth, I think, going there and spraying a little pond scum in there and going ahead and seeing what thrives. I mean, first we should test it to see if there's other life in there. But if not, I think we should contaminate it with something from the earth.
Right.
I mean, why not?
Terraforming.
That's it. See what grows. I would inject it with like a little soup of paramecium and single-celled and double-celled and those little troglodyte things that with the 6 legs that survive in any environment or whatever.
Right.
Why not?
No, you throw some of those. Yeah, you mean that whatever that thing is, it's going to survive in outer space.
Yeah, it can survive like anywhere.
Yeah.
It's got no face. It just has like 6
Well,
claws.
of course, what's interesting is the kind of reminds you of the terraforming, like from Star Trek, where they had that machine that was, supposed to do whatever it did to terraform.
The
I
Genesis
reach
device.
out for you, Kirk. Whatever. What did Khan say?
With my last breath, I spit it. He was quoting Melville from.
Oh, okay.
I shoot out my heart. From Moby Dick.
Okay. Well, this is that's that. Anyway, that was the machine, the terraforming machine that blowed up.
The Genesis device.
Genesis device, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we
should go plant one of those underneath the surface there, and then it's sort of like a bio time capsule.
Yeah.
See what grows.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Okay, well that's good. I certainly want to if you could do the mix and everything like that. But how about a little fertilizer or something there,
right?
So we can at least watch it.
Right, a magnifying glass or something to heat it up. I mean, come on, Elon, get on this here.
Yeah.
So, all right, well.
Okay, by the way, today is a Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, every Wednesday and Sunday at 4:00, make sure you tune in live. Were we live today?
Yeah, I think so. But we're going to post a better copy here real soon because it looks like we lost about 29% of our frames here.
Ooh.
So that's bad. So I'll try to fix that up for next time. But thank you for tuning in anyway, and we really appreciate it. And we'll be back on Sunday. If you have any topics you'd like us to discuss, you can leave a message for us. We will check it out at some point, and we'll do our best to get back to you.
Yeah.
All right. See ya.
Okay, so is this another copyrighted song?
Yeah.
Okay. We should get some of Britannia's stuff. We could get a license from Britannia.
No, we will.
Okay.
We will eventually. All right.
Thank you, everybody.